Let's dive right in, folks. Today, we're looking at an absolutely wild, almost cinematic story in this explainer of our source material. We're tracking how Vijay Mallya built an absolute titan of an empire, launched a massively hyped airline, and then somehow leveraged deep systemic loopholes to default on literally thousands of crores of public money. It's kind of the ultimate masterclass in business building, but followed by a really staggering lesson in unchecked hubris. You know, there's this really harsh reality built right into our financial system. Think about it. When an ordinary farmer defaults on a tiny loan, they face absolutely ruthless recovery tactics, right? Sometimes losing their very livelihood. But when a billionaire defaults on thousands of crores, they are somehow shielded by the exact same banking system that handed over the public's money in the first place. So how exactly does that happen? Let's unpack it.
That brings us to part 1, Rise of the Empire, Building the Liquor Titan.
Now, this whole empire didn't actually start with Vijay. It started with his dad, Vital Mallya, who was this incredibly sharp businessman. He took control of the United Breweries Group right around India's independence in 1947 at just 22 years old. And he raised his son, Vijay, in, well, immense, totally unprecedented luxury. I mean, while other kids were out playing traditional street games, Vijay was literally cruising around in imported battery-powered cars. That intense, privileged upbringing really set the stage for Vijay's crazy ambition, which eventually culminated in the launch of the iconic Kingfisher beer brand in 1978.
So when Vijay fully took the reins after his father's sudden passing, he definitely proved he was a lot more than just a rich kid. He totally overhauled the business. He introduced this strong 8% beer, which the market absolutely devoured. But his real genius, it was the marketing. India had a really strict ban on alcohol advertising, so Mallya cleverly leaned into surrogate marketing. He slapped that Kingfisher logo on bottled water, soda, sponsored super glamorous horse derbies, and, of course, launched the famous Kingfisher swimsuit calendar. He wasn't just selling a drink anymore. He was selling a complete, high-flying lifestyle.
And honestly, the strategy worked flawlessly. Under Vijay Mallya's leadership, the United Breweries Group just transformed. A company valued at around 40 crore rupees when he took over, well, that skyrocketed to an astonishing valuation of 6,000 crore rupees. He completely silenced his critics and made Kingfisher a household name in over 50 countries. It was a massive win.
Moving on to part 2, the airline's gamble, a fatal vanity project.
So, riding high on this success, Mallya decides he wants to conquer the skies. He launches Kingfisher Airlines in 2005, allegedly as an extravagant 18th birthday gift for his son. Just think about that for a second. An entire commercial airline as a birthday present? The whole focus here was extreme, uncompromised luxury. We're talking personal screens in every seat, premium food, and highly trained staff that he aggressively poached from rivals by offering ridiculous 75% salary hikes. Sure, passengers absolutely loved the VIP treatment, but the running costs were astronomical. So astronomical, in fact, that the airline never saw a single year of profit. Not one.
But wait, it gets worse. Desperate to get an international flying license, which required 5 years of domestic operation back then, Mallya hastily buys up a highly successful low-cost carrier called Air Deccan. Now, Air Deccan knew the Indian market perfectly. They offered basic facilities for a very low price, high volume. But Mallya disastrously decides to rebrand it to Kingfisher Red. He upgrades the facilities, bumps up the prices, and completely strips away its budget-friendly appeal. Naturally, all the budget customers simply left for cheaper rivals, heavily bleeding the company's finances. It was a colossal misstep.
Which leads us to part 3, Mounting Debt and a Lavish Lifestyle.
Right, so as the 2008 global recession hits and international oil prices soar, the airline's losses just deepened to this totally unmanageable level. But did Mallya's personal spending slow down? Not even a little bit. To keep his struggling aviation empire afloat, he didn't scale back. Instead, he went straight to the banks. He secured these massive, largely unsecured loans from a consortium led by major state-owned banks, and the total debt ballooned over 7,000 crore rupees. To put that into perspective, guys, this was public money, your money, being poured directly into a fundamentally broken business model.
The contrast on the ground was honestly shocking. On one hand, you had airline staff going unpaid for months, checks to vendors were bouncing left and right, and airports were literally demanding cash up front just to let his planes land. But Mallya's personal life? A completely different story. Simultaneously, he's continuing to draw a 33 crore personal salary, buying an entire IPL cricket team, throwing these massive VIP yacht parties,
and even picking up a €35 million property in France. His extravagance was just totally disconnected from reality. There's this fascinating anecdote from the source material that really captures the era. While his company was suffocating in debt, Mallya orders a brand new imported Mercedes for his UK estate. When an official nervously tells him, hey, there's literally no parking space left for another car, Mallya arrogantly demands not one, but two of the exact same model. Unbelievable, right?
All of this brings us to Part 4, the system's blind eye and regulatory failures.
Now you might be wondering, how exactly did banks and regulators continue to look the other way while a billionaire burned through thousands of crores? Well, part of the answer lies in a really staggering valuation discrepancy. The state bank's own internal calculations valued the Kingfisher brand at a pretty modest 160 crore. But an external audit firm inexplicably inflated the brand value to an astronomical 4,100 crore. And instead of questioning this massive leap, the banks just unquestioningly used this hugely inflated figure as collateral to keep issuing those massive loans. It's like a giant puzzle where the pieces don't fit, but everyone just agreed to pretend they did.
Furthermore, Mallya was actively shielding himself with political power. He managed to serve 2 terms as an independent member of parliament in the Rajya Sabha in 2002 and 2010. And while he rarely ever participated in actual parliamentary debates, this position gave him immense unhindered access. Meanwhile, banks were bending over backward, actively restructuring his debt by buying up his company's shares at 64 rupees a pop when the actual market price was hovering around just 38 rupees. They were effectively hiding the crisis, even ignoring early government warnings that his company hadn't paid their taxes in years.
And it is super important to note here that this wasn't an isolated issue with just one political party. The source material for this explainer strictly names major figures from entirely opposing sides of the aisle, including Congress, the BJP, and Janata Dal. They were all reportedly meeting with him, supporting his MP bids, or somehow aiding in loan facilitation over the years. We're not pointing fingers at any one group here. Rather, the sources highlight a massive, bipartisan failure of the entire systemic apparatus holding him accountable.
Okay, let's move to the final act. Part 5, The Great Escape, Fleeing the Country.
Even with frozen accounts and grounded flights, Mallya still had one final move. And the timeline of his escape is, well, it's deeply suspicious. In October 2015, the CBI issued a strict lookout notice to detain him if he tried to leave the country. Makes sense, right? But then, just a month later, this notice is mysteriously downgraded to a mere inform-only notice, meaning nobody stops him, they just have to tell authorities where he went. It wasn't until March 1, 2016 that banks finally petitioned the court to seize his passport, but by then it was too little too late.
Taking full, calculated advantage of this massive systemic paralysis, on March 2, 2016, literally just one day after the bank's petition to seize his passport, Vijay Mallya calmly boards a commercial Jet Airways flight from Delhi to London. He reportedly traveled with 55 suitcases. I mean, you don't exactly pack 55 suitcases for a quick weekend trip, right? He basically walked right out the front door, leaving behind a completely collapsed airline, thousands of stranded employees, and thousands of crores in unpaid public money.
Fast forward to today, and Mallya remains in the UK, fighting what seems like an endless extradition battle, while occasionally popping up on social media to offer negotiated settlements. But looking back at the loopholes, those wildly inflated valuations, and the constant VIP treatment, we really have to ask, will the system ever truly hold the ultra-wealthy accountable, or is the public destined to just always pay the ultimate price for unchecked corporate hubris? That's something to think about. Thanks for joining us for this explainer, and we'll see you next time.